The cold stone floor bit through Beatrice's thin stockings. She knelt in the corner of the chapel, her knees aching. The winter wind howled outside the tall windows. Inside, the air felt colder than the frost on the glass. "You will pray for your wickedness until your soul is clean," her stepmother had said that morning. "Perhaps by nightfall you will learn gratitude." Beatrice's crime had been simple. She had smiled at a servant, a young boy who carried wood for the fires. He had slipped on ice, and she had helped him gather the scattered logs. Her stepmother had seen it all from the window. "A lady does not lower herself to touch common wood," the woman had hissed. "You shame us with every breath." Now Beatrice sat alone in the family chapel. The sun had set hours ago. No one came to tell her she could leave. No one brought food or water. She wrapped her arms around herself and tried not to cry. The tears came anyway. They always did. Her father had died 3 years ago. He had left everything to his new wife. Beatrice had been 17 then, old enough to understand she had no power, too young to escape. Her stepmother had made it clear from the start, Beatrice was a burden, an ugly reminder of the first wife. A girl with no dowry and no future. "You should be grateful we do not throw you into the streets," her stepmother said often. "You have a roof over your head. That is more than you deserve." Beatrice's stepsisters were prettier. They had golden hair and pink cheeks. They wore new gowns and went to balls in London. Beatrice wore their old dresses. The hems were always too short, the bodices too tight or too loose. She looked like a scarecrow in borrowed rags. "No man will ever want you," her older stepsister Marianne liked to say. "You are too plain, too thin, too quiet." "At least she is useful for something," the younger one, Georgina, would add. "She can mend our stockings and clean our shoes." Beatrice did not argue. She learned that silence kept her safe. Words only brought more punishment, more days in the chapel, more nights without supper, more reminders that she was worthless. But deep inside, where no one could see, she held on to a small flame of hope. She read books when no one watched. She found joy in the garden when she could slip away. She sang quietly to herself while she worked. These tiny moments kept her alive. The chapel door creaked open. Beatrice looked up, expecting her stepmother's cold face. Instead, she saw Mrs. Thornby, the old housekeeper. The woman carried a lantern and a thick shawl. "Come, child," Mrs. Thornby whispered. "You have been here long enough." "But my stepmother said—" "Your stepmother is asleep, and what she does not know will not hurt you." The housekeeper wrapped the shawl around Beatrice's shoulders. "You are freezing. Let me take you to the kitchen." Beatrice followed on trembling legs. Her knees barely held her weight. In the warm kitchen, Mrs. Thornby gave her hot soup and bread. Beatrice ate slowly, savouring every bite. "You are too good for this place," Mrs. Thornby said softly. "Your mother would weep to see how they treat you." "I have nowhere else to go," Beatrice replied. "Perhaps that will change." The old woman patted her hand. "Life has a way of surprising us." Beatrice did not believe her. She had learned not to hope for miracles. Far across the countryside, in a grand manor called Thornwick Hall, Lord Nathaniel Ashworth stood at his study window. He stared out at the dark gardens. Snow covered everything in white silence. The house behind him felt enormous and empty. He was 30 years old, a baron with wealth and land. Society called him fortunate. His mother had died when he was young. His father had passed 2 years ago, leaving him with everything: title, money, responsibility. But Nathaniel felt hollow inside. He had loved once. Her name was Catherine. They were engaged to be married. She had golden hair and a bright laugh. Then fever took her one terrible spring. She died in 3 days. Nathaniel had held her hand as the light left her eyes. Since then, he had not felt truly alive. He went through the motions of living. He managed his estate. He attended social functions when required. He was polite to everyone. But inside, he was frozen. His sister Margaret worried about him. She lived with her husband in London now. She wrote letters every week. "You cannot mourn forever," she had written in her last letter. "Catherine would want you to be happy. You need a wife, Nathaniel. You need a family. You need warmth in that cold house." Nathaniel knew she was right. Thornwick Hall needed a mistress. He needed an heir. But the thought of choosing a bride from the marriage market exhausted him. All those young ladies with their practiced smiles and ambitious mothers, none of them stirred anything in his heart. He wanted something real, something genuine, but he did not know where to find it. His butler, Graves, entered the study with a letter on a silver tray. "This arrived by messenger, my lord. The man said it was urgent." Nathaniel broke the seal and read. It was from Mr. Pemberton, his late father's solicitor. The message was brief and strange. "My lord, I must discuss a matter of some delicacy regarding your late father's commitments. Please call upon me at your earliest convenience. The matter involves a promise made long ago that now requires fulfillment." Nathaniel frowned. His father had been an honourable man, but sometimes too generous with his promises. What obligation had he left behind? "Prepare the carriage," Nathaniel told Graves. "I will go to London tomorrow." That night, Nathaniel could not sleep. He paced his chambers, restless. Something was changing. He could feel it in his bones. His ordered, empty life was about to shift. He did not know if he welcomed it or feared it. In her small, cold bedroom, Beatrice also lay awake. Her knees still ached from kneeling on stone. Her stomach was full for the first time in days, thanks to Mrs. Thornby's kindness, but her heart felt heavy. Tomorrow would bring more of the same, more cruelty, more loneliness, more reminders that she did not belong anywhere. She pulled her thin blanket up to her chin and closed her eyes. In the darkness, she let herself dream. She imagined a different life, a place where she was wanted, where someone looked at her with kindness instead of contempt, where she did not have to shrink herself to survive. It was a foolish dream, she knew that, but in the quiet night, it was all she had. Neither Beatrice nor Nathaniel knew that fate was already at work. A promise made 20 years ago was about to bind their lives together. Two lonely souls were about to collide in the most unexpected way, and nothing would ever be the same. 3 days later, Beatrice's stepmother summoned her to the drawing room. This was unusual. Beatrice was rarely allowed in the formal rooms. She was meant to stay in the servants' quarters or her tiny bedroom. "Stand up straight," her stepmother barked when Beatrice entered. "Try not to look like a sickly mouse." Marianne and Georgina sat on the sofa, watching with curious eyes. A man stood by the fireplace. He was middle-aged with grey hair and kind eyes. He wore the clothes of a gentleman. "Miss Wainwright," the man said, bowing slightly. "I am Mr. Pemberton, a solicitor from London." Beatrice curtsied, confused. Why would a solicitor want to speak to her? "It has come to my attention," Mr. Pemberton continued, "that your late father and Lord Ashworth's late father made an agreement many years ago. They were close friends in their youth." Beatrice's stepmother sat forward, suddenly interested. "An agreement?" "Yes. Before either man was married, they made a pact. If each had children of the right ages, those children would be united in marriage. It was meant to strengthen the bond between their families." The room went silent. Beatrice felt dizzy. "Marriage? Lord Ashworth has recently been reminded of this promise," Mr. Pemberton said. "He is a man of honour. He wishes to fulfill his father's commitment." "You mean he wants to marry her?" Georgina asked, pointing at Beatrice as if she were a stray dog. "That is impossible," Marianne said. "She is nobody. She has no dowry, no connections." "She has the agreement," Mr. Pemberton replied calmly, "and Lord Ashworth intends to honour it." Beatrice's stepmother's eyes gleamed with sudden calculation. She had been trying to marry off her own daughters for years. Now this worthless stepdaughter had caught a baron's interest. It was infuriating, but it was also an opportunity. "Of course we are honoured," the woman said smoothly. When does Lord Ashworth wish to meet his bride? He is travelling here now. He will arrive tomorrow. Mr. Pemberton looked at Beatrice. Miss Wainwright, do you understand what this means? Beatrice could barely breathe. I am to marry a man I have never met. Yes, unless you refuse. Lord Ashworth will not force you, but he hopes you will accept. Refuse, Beatrice thought, and stay here, in this house where I am treated like dirt. She thought of endless days of cruelty, of her stepmother's cold eyes and her stepsister's mocking laughs, of kneeling in cold chapels and going to bed hungry, of having no future at all. A stranger could not be worse than this, could he? I will accept, Beatrice heard herself say. Her stepmother smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Excellent. We must prepare you. You look like a beggar. We cannot send you to Lord Ashworth looking like that. For the next day, Beatrice was scrubbed, dressed, and instructed. Her stepmother gave her an old gown that had belonged to Marianne. It was blue silk, faded but still fine. Better than anything Beatrice had worn in years. Remember, her stepmother hissed before Lord Ashworth arrived, you will be grateful and obedient. You will not embarrass this family. If you do anything to displease Lord Ashworth, I will make you regret it. Beatrice nodded. She was too numb to feel afraid. When Lord Nathaniel Ashworth arrived, the household gathered in the drawing room. Beatrice stood with her hands clasped, her eyes on the floor. She heard the door open, heard footsteps, heard her stepmother's sugary voice greeting their guest. Lord Ashworth, what an honour! May I present my stepdaughter, Miss Beatrice Wainwright? Beatrice forced herself to look up. Her breath caught in her throat. He was tall and broad-shouldered. He had dark hair and grey eyes. His face was handsome but serious. He looked like a man who rarely smiled. He wore dark clothes that emphasized his wealth. Everything about him spoke of power. She felt small and plain beside him, like a weed next to an oak tree. Nathaniel looked at the young woman before him. She was thin, almost fragile. Her brown hair was pulled back simply. Her dress was nice but clearly old. But her eyes caught his attention. They were large and dark, full of wariness and something else, something like hope buried under fear. She looked like a bird that had been caged too long. Miss Wainwright, he said quietly, I am pleased to meet you. His voice was deep and gentle. It surprised Beatrice. She had expected coldness, arrogance, but he spoke to her as if she mattered. My lord, she whispered, curtsying. I apologize for the unusual circumstances, Nathaniel continued. I know this must be overwhelming. I hope we can speak privately. Beatrice's stepmother opened her mouth to protest, but Mr. Pemberton, who had returned with Nathaniel, gave her a stern look. It is proper for them to speak before the wedding, he said firmly. The wedding. It was to happen in 3 days. Everything was already arranged. Nathaniel had obtained a special license. There was no time for a courtship, no time to change their minds. Beatrice and Nathaniel walked into the garden. The cold air bit at her cheeks. She had no shawl, but she did not complain. Being away from her stepmother's eyes was worth the cold. They walked in silence for a moment. Nathaniel noticed she was shivering. Without a word, he removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. The gesture stunned her. No one ever gave her anything. No one ever noticed when she was cold. Thank you, my lord, she managed. Please call me Nathaniel when we are alone. He paused by a frozen fountain. I want you to know something. I did not seek this arrangement, but I will not dishonor my father's word. However, I will not force you into unhappiness. If you truly wish to refuse, I will find another way to help you. Beatrice stared at him. Was he serious? You would let me refuse? Of course. Marriage should not be a prison. His grey eyes studied her face. Though I suspect your current situation is not pleasant. He saw too much. Beatrice looked away. I have a roof over my head. But not kindness. His voice was soft. not warmth. Her throat tightened. She would not cry. She would not. I have learned to manage. That is not the same as living. Nathaniel took a breath. I will be honest with you, Miss Wainwright. I am not offering you a love match. I lost someone dear to me 2 years ago. My heart has not recovered. But I can offer you respect, safety, a home where you will not be mistreated. Is that enough? Beatrice looked up at him. His face was serious, but his eyes were kind. He was not promising her fairy tales. He was offering her something real, something she desperately needed. Yes, she said quietly, that is more than enough. Something flickered in his expression. Relief? Sadness? She could not tell. Then we will marry in 3 days, he said, and I will take you to Thornwick Hall. You will be Lady Ashworth, mistress of the estate. No one will hurt you again. It was not a declaration of love, but to Beatrice, it sounded like salvation. The wedding was a quiet affair. It took place in the same chapel where Beatrice had spent so many cold hours on her knees. Now she stood at the altar in a simple white gown. Her stepmother had insisted on keeping the ceremony small. She did not want society to know she had practically sold her stepdaughter to a baron. Beatrice spoke her vows in a steady voice. Nathaniel's voice was firm and calm. The vicar pronounced them husband and wife. Nathaniel lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles. The touch was brief, formal, but it sent warmth through her entire body. She was Lady Ashworth now. The girl who had been called worthless was now a baroness. Her stepmother and stepsisters attended with false smiles. They were already calculating how to use this connection. Beatrice did not care. She was leaving this place forever. After the ceremony, Nathaniel helped her into his carriage. As they rolled away from the house, Beatrice looked back one last time. Mrs. Thornby stood at the kitchen door waving. Beatrice waved back, tears in her eyes. The old woman had been the only kindness she had known. Inside the carriage, silence stretched between them. Nathaniel sat across from her, not beside her, giving her space. The gesture made her grateful and sad at the same time. Are you well? He asked after a while. Yes, my lord, Nathaniel. His name felt strange on her tongue. It is a long journey to Thornwick Hall. You should rest if you can. Beatrice nodded, but she could not rest. Her mind spun with too many thoughts. She was married, to a stranger. She was leaving everything she knew, even if that everything had been painful. What waited for her at Thornwick Hall? Would he truly be kind? Or would this be another form of captivity? She glanced at him. He stared out the window, his expression unreadable. He was handsome, yes, but he seemed so distant, so locked inside himself. You're not trembling from cold, he murmured suddenly, looking at her. Beatrice realized she was shaking. I apologize. I am nervous. Do not apologize. It is natural. He leaned forward slightly. I want to make something clear, Beatrice. I will not demand anything from you tonight, or any night until you are ready. This marriage will move at your pace. Her cheeks burned. She had not let herself think about that part of marriage. Thank you. I mean it. You have been through much. I will not add to your burdens. His grey eyes held hers. I want you to feel safe. Something cracked inside her chest. Safe. She had not felt safe in so long. Could she really trust this man, this stranger who was now her husband? Only time would tell. They arrived at Thornwick Hall as the sun was setting. The manor rose before them, grand and imposing. Beatrice's breath caught. It was enormous, far larger than her father's old house. Windows glowed with warm light. The grounds stretched in every direction. Servants lined up to greet them, a butler, a housekeeper, maids, footmen. They all bowed and curtsied. The housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, smiled warmly at Beatrice. "Welcome home, Lady Ashworth," the woman said. Home. The word made Beatrice want to cry. Mrs. Davies showed her to her chambers. They were beautiful. A large bedroom with a fire crackling in the hearth, soft rugs on polished floors, a massive bed with thick curtains, a dressing room beyond. Everything smelled of lavender and beeswax. "Lord Ashworth's chambers are through that door," Mrs. Davies said, pointing to a connecting door. "But it is locked on your side, my lady. You control when it opens." Beatrice nodded, grateful. He had given her control, even in this. "Dinner will be served in an hour," Mrs. Davies continued. "I'll send a maid to help you dress." When the housekeeper left, Beatrice stood in the center of the room. She touched the soft fabric of the bed curtains. She walked to the window and looked out at the darkening gardens. She turned in a slow circle, trying to absorb that this was real. She was Lady Ashworth. This was her home now. A maid arrived, young and friendly. Her name was Lucy. She helped Beatrice out of her wedding gown and into a dinner dress. She brushed Beatrice's hair and pinned it up. "You have lovely hair, my lady," Lucy said shyly. "So thick and shiny." No one had ever called anything about Beatrice lovely. "Thank you, Lucy." "We are all so happy Lord Ashworth married," the girl continued. "He has been so lonely. The house has been sad. But now you are here. Everything will be different." Beatrice hoped that was true. Dinner was served in a smaller dining room. Beatrice had feared they would sit at opposite ends of a long table, but Nathaniel had arranged for them to sit near each other, close enough to speak comfortably. He asked her questions as they ate. Did she like to read? Yes. What kind of books? Everything, but especially poetry. Did she play the pianoforte? A little, though she was out of practice. Did she enjoy riding? She did not know. She had never been allowed to learn. That answer made him frown. Never? My stepmother thought it was too dangerous and too expensive to outfit me properly. I see. His voice hardened slightly. Well, you will learn here if you wish. I have a gentle mare that would suit you. I would like that very much. The conversation was polite but careful. They were strangers trying to map each other's edges. Beatrice found herself relaxing slightly. He was easy to talk to. He listened when she spoke. He did not interrupt or dismiss her. After dinner, he walked her back to her chambers. At her door, he paused. I hope you will sleep well, he said. Thank you, for everything today, for your kindness. She meant it deeply. You need not thank me for treating you as you deserve. He hesitated, then added, Good night, Beatrice. Good night, Nathaniel. She closed the door and leaned against it. Her heart pounded. She was married. She was in a strange house. But she did not feel afraid. She felt something she barely recognized. Hope. In his own chambers, Nathaniel sat by the fire. He thought about the young woman who was now his wife. She was not what he expected. She was quiet, yes, but not weak. He saw strength in the way she held herself, in the way she spoke carefully, as if words were precious. She had been hurt. He could see it in her eyes, in the way she flinched when he moved too quickly, in her surprise at every small kindness. What had they done to her in that house? He felt an unfamiliar surge of protectiveness. She was his wife now, his responsibility. No one would hurt her again. He would make sure of that. But he could not give her love. His heart was still a frozen thing. Catherine's death had seen to that. He could only offer Beatrice safety and respect. He hoped it would be enough. Days turned into weeks. Beatrice began to settle into life at Thornwick Hall. She woke each morning in her soft bed. She ate 3 meals a day. She wore dresses that fit properly. No one shouted at her. No one sent her to kneel in cold chapels. It felt like a dream. Mrs. Davies showed her around the house. It was enormous, with dozens of rooms. A library that made Beatrice gasp with joy. A music room with a beautiful pianoforte. A conservatory full of plants. Gardens that stretched forever. "This is all yours to command, my lady," Mrs. Davies said warmly. "You are the mistress here." Beatrice struggled to believe it. She had been a servant in her stepmother's house. Now she was supposed to give orders. But the staff was patient with her. They seemed genuinely happy to have a mistress again. They had loved Nathaniel's mother. They hoped Beatrice would bring the same warmth back to the house. Nathaniel kept his promise. He was kind but distant. They ate dinner together every evening. They talked about books, the estate, the weather. Safe topics, pleasant but never too deep. He never touched her beyond helping her in and out of carriages. He never pushed for more. Beatrice appreciated his restraint, but part of her wondered what he thought of her. Did he regret marrying her? Did he find her as plain and dull as her stepsisters always said? She tried not to think about it. She had so much more than before. She should be grateful. But late at night, lying in her large bed alone, she wondered what it would be like if he loved her. If he looked at her with warmth instead of polite distance. If he held her and made her feel truly wanted. It was a foolish dream. He had been honest from the start. This was not a love match. She needed to accept that. One afternoon, Nathaniel found her in the library. She was curled in a chair by the window, reading. Sunlight caught in her hair, turning it warm brown with hints of gold. She looked peaceful, content. Something stirred in his chest. He pushed it down. "Am I disturbing you?" he asked. She looked up, startled. "Of course not. This is your library." "It is our library now." He came closer. "What are you reading?" She showed him the book, Poetry by Lord Byron. "I hope it is all right. I did not think you would mind." "I do not mind at all. Read anything you like." He paused. "I came to ask if you would join me for a ride tomorrow. I thought you might like to see more of the estate." Her face lit up. "On horseback?" "Yes, if you are willing to try." "I would love to." Her genuine joy touched him. She was so easy to please, so grateful for small things. It made him realize how little she had been given in her life. The next morning he took her to the stables. He introduced her to Daisy, a gentle grey mare. The stablemaster, old Tom, helped Beatrice into the saddle. She was nervous but excited. Nathaniel mounted his own horse, a large black gelding named Midnight. They rode out slowly. He stayed close, watching to make sure she was comfortable. Beatrice was clumsy at first, but she learned quickly. Soon they were trotting along a path through the woods. Her cheeks flushed pink from the cold air and exercise. Her eyes sparkled. "This is wonderful," she called to him, laughing. The sound of her laugh caught him off guard. It was bright and free. He realized he had never heard her laugh before. He wanted to hear it again. They rode to the top of a hill. From there, they could see the whole estate, fields and forests, the village in the distance, the manor house sitting proudly on its grounds. "It is beautiful," Beatrice breathed. "It is yours now," Nathaniel said. "All of this. You are Lady Ashworth. This is your home." She looked at him, and he saw tears in her eyes. "I still cannot believe it sometimes, that this is real." "It is real." He reached over and squeezed her gloved hand briefly. "You belong here, Beatrice." Her fingers tightened around his for just a moment before he let go. The brief contact sent warmth through both of them. On the ride back, Nathaniel found himself watching her. The way she sat the horse, growing more confident, the way the wind tugged at her hair, the way she smiled at everything around her. She was not a beauty in the classical sense, but there was something about her, a quiet loveliness, a gentle strength. He felt something crack in the ice around his heart, just a small fissure, but it was there. That evening, they lingered over dinner longer than usual. The conversation flowed more easily. Beatrice told him about her father, how kind he had been before he died, how much she missed him. "He would be glad you are safe now," Nathaniel said gently. "I hope so. I hope he knows." She paused, then asked, "Will you tell me about Catherine?" Nathaniel stiffened. He never spoke about Catherine. But Beatrice's eyes were full of compassion, not curiosity. She genuinely wanted to understand him. "She was my childhood friend," he said slowly. "We grew up together. It seemed natural that we would marry. She was bright and full of life. When the fever took her, it happened so fast. One day she was laughing. 3 days later, she was gone." "I am sorry," Beatrice said softly. "That must have been terrible." "It was. I felt as if part of me died with her." He looked into his wineglass. "I have not felt whole since." Beatrice's heart ached for him. She understood loss. She understood pain. "Grief is heavy, but you are still here, still alive. That must mean something." He looked up at her. Her words were simple but true. He was still alive, still breathing, still capable of feeling even if it hurt. "Perhaps you are right," he said quietly. The moment stretched between them. Something shifted, a connection forming. They were two wounded souls recognizing each other. From that night on, things changed. Not dramatically, but in small, important ways. Nathaniel began seeking her company more often. He invited her to walk in the gardens with him. He asked her opinion on estate matters. He taught her to play chess in the evenings. Beatrice bloomed under his attention. She spoke more freely. She laughed more often. She stopped apologizing for taking up space. The servants noticed. "She is good for him," Mrs. Davies told the butler. "He smiles now, really smiles." "And she is happy," Lucy added. "She sings sometimes when she thinks no one can hear." One rainy afternoon, Nathaniel found Beatrice in the music room. She sat at the pianoforte, playing softly. The melody was sweet, but sad. He stood in the doorway, listening. She played with feeling, even if her technique was rusty. When she finished, he applauded quietly. She spun around, startled. "I did not know you were there." "I did not want to interrupt. That was beautiful." He came into the room. "Play something else." "I am not very skilled." "I do not care about skill. I care about how it sounds, and it sounds lovely." She blushed at the compliment. She played another piece, more confident now. He sat nearby, watching her hands move over the keys, watching her face as she lost herself in the music. When she finished, he said, "You should play every day. This room has been silent too long." "Will it not bother you?" "It will bring life to the house. I like it." That night, after dinner, Beatrice gathered her courage. "Nathaniel, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you so kind to me?" He looked surprised. "Why would I not be?" "I am nobody, plain and ordinary. You could have married anyone, someone beautiful and accomplished, yet you treat me as if I matter." "You do matter." His voice was firm. "You are my wife. But beyond that, you are a person deserving of kindness. Beauty and accomplishment mean nothing without goodness. And you, Beatrice, are good." Her eyes filled with tears. "No one has ever said such things to me." "Then everyone else was a fool." He reached across the table and took her hand. This time he did not let go quickly. "You are stronger than you know, braver than you realize. You survived years of cruelty and did not let it make you cruel. That is rare. That is precious." A tear slid down her cheek. "Thank you." He wiped the tear away with his thumb. The gesture was tender, intimate. His hand lingered on her cheek for a heartbeat. Then he pulled back, as if afraid of crossing a line. But the line was already blurring. They both felt it. Winter deepened. Snow covered the grounds. Inside Thornwick Hall, warmth grew. Nathaniel and Beatrice spent their evenings by the fire, sometimes reading to each other, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. One night, a terrible storm hit. Thunder shook the windows, lightning split the sky. Beatrice woke in her bed, trembling. She had always hated storms. They reminded her of being locked in the chapel during raging weather, alone and terrified. She tried to calm herself. She was safe now. She was in a warm bed in a solid house. But fear was not logical. A soft knock came at the connecting door. "Beatrice, are you all right?" Nathaniel's voice. She got up and unlocked the door. He stood there in his nightshirt and robe, a candle in his hand. His hair was mussed from sleep. "I heard you moving about," he said. "The storm woke you." "I apologize. I did not mean to disturb you." "You did not. I was already awake." He saw the fear in her eyes. "You are frightened." She nodded, embarrassed. "I know it is foolish." "It is not foolish." He hesitated. "Would you like company? I could sit with you until the storm passes." Relief flooded her. "Would you?" He settled into the chair by her fireplace. She climbed back into bed. They did not speak, but his presence was a comfort. Every time thunder crashed, she looked at him. He was there, solid and real. Eventually, the storm eased. Beatrice felt her eyes growing heavy. "You can go back to your room now," she murmured sleepily. "I am all right." "I will stay until you are asleep," he said quietly. She drifted off with his words warming her heart. When she woke in the morning, he was gone, but a blanket had been tucked around her carefully. He had stayed to make sure she was covered and safe. The gesture made her fall a little bit in love with him. Nathaniel found himself thinking about Beatrice constantly, the way she hummed while arranging flowers, the way she curled up with a book like a cat finding sun, the way she listened when he talked about estate problems, offering surprisingly thoughtful suggestions. She was becoming necessary to him, not just a presence in his house, but someone he needed, someone who made his days better. It frightened him. He had sworn not to love again. Love brought pain, loss, devastation. But his heart did not care about his vows. It was waking up despite his best efforts. One afternoon, they were walking in the garden. Snow crunched under their feet. Beatrice stopped to admire a frozen fountain. "It is like glass," she said, touching the ice carefully. "Be careful. It is slippery." As if his words summoned disaster, her foot slipped. She gasped, falling. Nathaniel caught her, his arms wrapping around her waist. He pulled her against his chest, steadying her. For a moment they stood locked together. He could feel her heart racing. Or was that his own? Her face was inches from his, her lips parted in surprise. Her breath came in small clouds in the cold air. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough. "No, you caught me." "I will always catch you," he said. The words came without thought, but they were true. Her eyes widened. She saw something in his face, something that had not been there before. Warmth, longing. He wanted to kiss her. The realization hit him like lightning. He wanted to pull her closer and taste her lips. He wanted to keep her in his arms forever. But he released her instead, stepped back, tried to rebuild the walls crumbling inside him. "We should go inside," he said. "You are cold." "Nathaniel." "Please," his voice cracked. "Not yet." She did not understand, but she nodded. They walked back in silence, but everything had changed. They both knew it. That night, Nathaniel could not sleep. He paced his room like a caged animal. He was falling in love with his wife, the wife he had married out of obligation, the wife he had promised only safety and respect. What a fool he had been. As if he could control his heart, as if he could live with Beatrice's gentle goodness and not be affected. She had slipped past his defenses without even trying. She had brought light into his dark world. She had made him want to live again, not just exist. He loved her. The truth settled over him like snow, quiet and undeniable. But did she feel the same? Or did she see him only as a rescuer, a kind master better than her cruel stepmother? The thought of her not loving him back hurt more than he expected. When had her feelings become so important? When had her happiness become essential to his own? He needed to tell her, but fear held him back. What if he frightened her? What if she ran? What if she stayed only out of obligation? He could not bear that. So he said nothing, but his eyes followed her everywhere. His hands lingered when he helped her with her coat. His voice softened when he spoke her name. Beatrice noticed. How could she not? Something had shifted in him after that day in the garden. He looked at her differently, as if she was precious, as if she mattered more than anything. It made her heart race and her palms sweat, because she had already fallen in love with him, completely and helplessly. She loved his quiet strength, his hidden gentleness, the way he treated servants with respect, the way he listened to her as if her words had value, the way he had given her safety and asked nothing in return. She loved him, but she was terrified to tell him. What if he did not want her love? What if he was still in love with Catherine? What if she was just a duty to him? So she stayed silent too. They circled each other like dancers afraid to touch. The air between them crackled with unspoken feelings. The household watched with knowing eyes. They love each other, Mrs. Davies said to Lucy, but neither will speak first. Someone needs to push them, Lucy replied. But sometimes fate provides its own push. One morning a letter arrived. Beatrice saw the seal and went pale. It was from her stepmother. Nathaniel found her in the library, the letter clutched in her shaking hands. What is wrong? My stepmother writes that she is coming to visit. She will arrive in 2 days. I see. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He had never met the woman, but he despised her. If you do not wish to see her, I will send a reply refusing. No, she will only cause trouble if we refuse. It is better to let her come, get it over with. You will not face her alone. I will be with you the entire time. His fierce protectiveness made her want to cry. Thank you. The next 2 days, Beatrice was tense. Her laughter disappeared, her smiles faded. She jumped at shadows. Nathaniel watched her withdraw into herself, and it made him furious. One woman's cruelty still had power over her. He wanted to destroy that power, to show Beatrice she was free. But he could only offer his presence and support. When the carriage arrived, Beatrice's stepmother swept in like a cold wind. She was handsome in a harsh way. Her eyes were calculating. She surveyed Thornwick Hall with greedy appreciation. Well, Beatrice, she said, barely glancing at her stepdaughter, you have done better than I expected. Lady Ashworth, how grand. Nathaniel stepped forward. I am Lord Ashworth. Welcome to my home. The woman curtsied, her smile brittle. My lord, I am Mrs. Wainwright. I raised Beatrice after her poor father died. Raised her. The lie was enormous. Nathaniel saw Beatrice flinch. Indeed, he said coldly. Shall we take tea? In the drawing room, Mrs. Wainwright's true nature emerged. She spoke sweetly, but her words were poisoned. She told stories of Beatrice's supposed failures, her clumsiness, her plain looks, her lack of accomplishments. I tried my best with her, the woman sighed, but some girls are simply hopeless. I am amazed you married her, my lord. You could have had anyone. Beatrice sat frozen, her hands clenched in her lap. She felt herself shrinking, becoming small and worthless again. All the confidence she had built crumbled under her stepmother's words. Nathaniel saw it happening, saw the light leaving Beatrice's eyes, saw her shoulders hunch, his fury ignited. I think you misunderstand, madam, he said, his voice cutting like ice. I am the fortunate one in this marriage. Beatrice is worth more than all the accomplished society beauties combined. She is kind, intelligent, gentle, and strong. She has brought warmth and joy to my home. I could not have chosen better." Mrs. Wainwright blinked, taken aback. "Well, of course, my lord. I only meant—" "I know what you meant, and you are wrong." He stood, towering over the seated woman. "You treated her abominably. You starved her, belittled her, and tried to break her spirit. You failed. She survived you, and now she is beyond your reach. She is a baroness, mistress of this estate, and my wife. You will show her respect, or you will leave my home immediately." Silence fell like a hammer. Mrs. Wainwright's face went red, then white. Beatrice stared at Nathaniel, tears streaming down her face. "I believe this visit is over," Nathaniel continued. "Graves, prepare Mrs. Wainwright's carriage." "But I just arrived," the woman sputtered. "And now you are leaving. You are not welcome here. You will not contact my wife again. If you do, I will make sure all of society knows exactly how you treated her. I doubt your daughters will make good matches if everyone learns their mother is a cruel, heartless woman." Mrs. Wainwright stood, shaking with rage. "You will regret this." "The only thing I regret is not ending this visit sooner. Goodbye, madam." The woman stormed out. Within the hour, her carriage was gone. Beatrice remained in the drawing room, crying quietly. Nathaniel knelt before her chair. "She can never hurt you again," he said gently. "I promise. You are safe." "You defended me," Beatrice whispered. "No one has ever defended me." "I will always defend you. Always." He took her hands. "Beatrice, I need to tell you something. I have tried to hold it back, but I cannot anymore." She looked at him through tears. "What is it?" "I love you." The words burst from him. "I know I said this marriage would not be about love. I was a fool. I fell in love with you without even realizing it. Your kindness, your strength, your gentle spirit. Everything about you captured my heart. I love you desperately, completely." Her breath caught. "You love me?" "Yes. I know you may not feel the same. I know you married me for safety, not love, but I had to tell you. I could not keep it inside anymore." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but these were different. These were joy. "Nathaniel, I love you too. I have loved you for weeks. I was afraid to tell you, afraid you could never love someone like me." "Someone like you?" He cupped her face. "You are everything. You brought me back to life. I was dead inside until you came. You are the sun after endless winter." He leaned forward and kissed her, softly at first, then deeper as she responded. Her arms went around his neck, his hands tangled in her hair. They kissed like drowning people finding air. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Nathaniel rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said again. "I will spend my life proving it." "I love you too," she whispered. "My husband, my heart." He lifted her into his arms and carried her toward the door. "I think," he said, his voice rough with emotion and desire, "that it is time I showed my wife properly how much she is loved." She blushed but nodded. "Yes." They disappeared upstairs, and for the first time, the connecting door between their rooms remained open. They came together as husband and wife should, with love, tenderness, and passion. It was everything Beatrice had never dared to dream, and everything Nathaniel had thought he would never feel again. Later, as they lay tangled together in his large bed, Beatrice traced patterns on his chest. "I never thought I could be this happy." "Neither did I." He kissed her hair. "You healed me, Beatrice. You brought me back from the cold." "We healed each other," she corrected softly. He smiled. It was true. They had both been broken, but together they were whole. The next months were blissful. Nathaniel and Beatrice were inseparable. They walked together every morning, rode horses through the countryside, played chess and cards in the evenings, made love with tender passion every night. Beatrice bloomed like a flower finally given sun and water. She laughed freely now. Her eyes sparkled. She moved through Thornwick Hall with confidence. The staff adored her. The tenants loved her kindness. She became the heart of the estate. Nathaniel changed too. The cold, distant Baron became warm and alive. He smiled often. He laughed at her jokes. He held her hand in public, not caring what anyone thought. His sister Margaret visited and was amazed at the transformation. "You love her," Margaret said, watching Nathaniel watch Beatrice across the room. "More than life," he admitted. "I am so happy for you, brother. You deserve this joy." But happiness is sometimes tested. One afternoon, news arrived from London. There had been talk at a society party. Someone had been spreading rumours about Beatrice, about her low birth, her lack of dowry, whispers that Nathaniel had been forced to marry her. Beatrice overheard the servants gossiping about it. The old fears returned. What if society rejected her? What if she embarrassed Nathaniel? What if he regretted marrying her after all? She withdrew into herself, becoming quiet again. Nathaniel noticed immediately. "What troubles you, my love?" "The rumours from London. About me. About our marriage." "I care nothing for rumours." "But what if people think poorly of you for marrying me? What if I damage your reputation?" He took her shoulders gently. "Beatrice, listen to me. I do not care what anyone thinks. You are my wife. I love you. That is all that matters." "But society can go to hell." His vehemence surprised her. "I will not live my life by their rules. I chose love, I chose you, and I would choose you again 1,000 times." "You truly do not care what they say?" "Not even a little." He kissed her forehead. "But if it will make you feel better, we will go to London. We will attend the season. I will show everyone that you are my beloved wife, and I am proud of you." "You would do that?" "For you, I would do anything." They went to London the next month. Nathaniel opened his townhouse. He ordered new gowns for Beatrice in the finest fabrics. He took her to balls and dinners. He introduced her to everyone with pride. At first, society did whisper. Some ladies looked down their noses. Some men seemed surprised that the Baron had married such a plain, unknown girl. But Nathaniel's devotion was impossible to miss. He danced only with his wife. He kept his hand at her back possessively. He gazed at her as if she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And under his love, Beatrice glowed. She held her head high. She spoke with quiet confidence. She was kind to everyone, even those who had been unkind. Her genuine warmth won people over. Soon, society changed its tune. Lady Ashworth was declared charming and refreshingly genuine. Lord Ashworth was called deeply in love and the most devoted husband in London. One evening at a grand ball, they danced together in the centre of the floor. Nathaniel held her close, closer than propriety allowed. "You're not trembling from cold," he murmured, echoing his words from their wedding night. "No," she agreed, smiling up at him. "I am trembling from happiness." He spun her around and she laughed. The sound filled the ballroom. People smiled, watching them. There was something beautiful about seeing two people so clearly in love. After the dance, they slipped away to a small chapel attached to the estate where the ball was held. It was quiet inside. Candles flickered before the altar. The stone walls held centuries of prayers. "This reminds me of the chapel where I spent so many cold, lonely hours," Beatrice said softly. "Then let me give you better memories." Nathaniel pulled her close. He kissed her deeply, passionately. His hands roamed her back, pulling her against him. "Nathaniel," she gasped. "We cannot. Not here. This is a holy place." "Then we are blessing it with love," he said against her lips. "Is that not the holiest thing of all?" She could not argue with that logic. She melted into his embrace. They kissed until they were both breathless. until the cold chapel walls seemed to warm with their passion. "I love you," he whispered. "Every day I love you more. And I love you, my husband, my everything." They held each other in the candlelight. Two people who had been broken and alone, who had found each other against all odds, who had built something beautiful from pain and duty. The chapel that had once witnessed Beatrice's suffering now witnessed her joy. The sacred walls absorbed their love and held it close, proof that redemption is always possible, that love can bloom in the coldest places, that happy endings are real for those brave enough to hope. They returned to Thornwick Hall at summer's end. Beatrice had news that made her nervous and excited. She was with child. Nathaniel wept when she told him. He held her so carefully, as if she was made of glass. "You have given me everything," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Life, love, hope, and now a child. I do not deserve you." "We deserve each other," she corrected. "We saved each other." Their daughter was born the following spring. They named her Catherine Beatrice Ashworth, a name honoring both Nathaniel's past and his present. A symbol that love does not replace love, it adds to it, grows it. Holding his daughter, with his wife beside him, Nathaniel felt complete. The cold, empty barren was gone. In his place was a man filled with warmth, joy, and purpose. Beatrice looked at her husband holding their baby. She thought of the frightened girl kneeling in a cold chapel, the girl who thought she was worthless, who never dreamed she could be loved. That girl was gone too. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, a woman who loved and was loved in return, a woman who had found her home. Years passed. Thornwick Hall filled with children and laughter. Beatrice and Nathaniel grew old together, their love deepening with every year. They never forgot the pain that brought them together, but they transformed it into something beautiful. The chapel on the estate became a place they visited often, not as punishment, but as prayer. They thanked whatever power had brought them together. They lit candles for the lonely people they had been, and they celebrated the people they became. Because sometimes the coldest places hold the warmest possibilities. Sometimes duty becomes love. Sometimes two broken pieces fit together perfectly. Sometimes the ending you never dreamed of becomes the life you cannot imagine living without. And sometimes a man whispers that you are not trembling from cold, and then proceeds to warm you with a love so fierce, so true, that it transforms everything. Even the sins the chapel forbade become blessings when wrapped in devotion. Their story became legend in the countryside. The baron who defended his wife against the world, the lady who brought warmth to a frozen house, the love that conquered pain and social convention. But to Nathaniel and Beatrice, it was simply their life, their beautiful, hard-won, precious life, and they lived it fully, gratefully, together until their last breaths.